Hello, my good friends. How are you today? God bless you all. It's pouring rain in Detroit as Maggie Sullivan walks out of the Rusty Spoon diner soaked and exhausted until she sees a child shivering in the alley, alone and desperate. "I don't have anyone," he whispers, and her heart stops. Across the street, a mysterious figure watches from a dark car. Who is he? Why is he there? A rainy night is about to change everything. Stick around to see why. Subscribe, comment where you're watching, and we'll begin this journey. The rain came down in sheets, turning the cracked pavement of Graciette Avenue into a river of muddy water. Detroit wasn't kind this time of year. Hell, it wasn't kind any time of year. The wind howled through the empty lots, rattling the rusty chain-link fences, and the streetlights flickered like they were one gust away from giving up. Maggie Sullivan pulled her frayed hoodie tighter around her shoulders as she stepped out of Rusty Spoon Diner, the bell above the door giving a weak jingle behind her. Her shift had ended 20 minutes ago, but she'd stayed late to scrub the grill. 12 hours on her feet, and her sneakers, worn thin at the soles, squished with every step. She was beat, the kind of tired that sank into your bones and made you wonder why you kept going. But she didn't have a choice. Not with Mom's meds piling up and Tommy's tuition due next month. She was halfway down the block when something caught her eye. A shadow in the alley beside the diner, hunched under a soggy piece of cardboard. Maggie stopped, squinting through the rain. It wasn't unusual to see folks down on their luck around here, but this shadow was small, too small. She took a step closer, her breath fogging in the cold, and saw him, a kid, couldn't be more than 10, curled up against the brick wall. His dark hair stuck to his forehead, dripping wet, and his arms were wrapped tight around his knees like he was trying to disappear. A ratty old sweatshirt hung off his skinny frame, soaked through, offering no protection from the biting chill. "Hey, kiddo," Maggie called softly, crouching down so she wouldn't spook him. "You okay? You're soaked to the bone." The boy's head jerked up and his big brown eyes locked on hers, wide, scared, like a cornered animal. He didn't say anything at first, just stared, his teeth chattering. Up close, she could see the dirt smudged on his cheeks, the way his hands trembled. Maggie's stomach twisted. She'd seen plenty of rough nights in this city, but this kid? He looked like he'd been chewed up and spit out. I don't got nobody," he finally whispered, his voice so quiet it almost drowned in the rain. Maggie's throat tightened. Nobody. That word hit her like a punch. She thought of Tommy, her little brother, safe in his dorm at Michigan State, chasing a degree she'd never get. She'd kill to keep him from ending up like this. "What's your name, sweetheart?" she asked, keeping her tone gentle. "Jimmy," he mumbled, barely audible. "Jimmy Torres." "All right, Kay Jimmy, you're coming with me." Maggie didn't think twice. She stood up, brushing the rain from her face, and held out her hand. "Come on, we'll get you something warm to eat." Jimmy hesitated, his eyes darting from her hand to her face, like he was waiting for the catch. But then, slowly, he reached out, his small, icy fingers slipping into hers. She pulled him up, and they trudged back to the diner, the rain pelting them both. Maggie didn't care that her hoodie was drenched now too, or that her sneakers were beyond saving. All she could think about was getting this kid dry. Inside Rusty Spoon, the air smelled like burnt coffee and greasy fries, a scent that clung to everything. The faded green booths, the chipped counter, the jukebox that hadn't worked since '98. The neon sign in the window buzzed faintly, casting a pinkish glow over the empty room. Maggie grabbed a towel from behind the counter, one of the threadbare ones Eddie kept for spills, and draped it over Jimmy's shoulders. "Sit tight," she said, pointing to a booth. She ducked into the kitchen, the linoleum sticky under her feet, and rummaged through the fridge. There wasn't much. Some day-old rolls and a pot of chicken noodle soup she'd made for the lunch rush. Good enough. She heated the soup on the stove, the hiss of the gas flame mixing with the steady drip of rain outside. When she came back, Jimmy was huddled in the booth, the towel pulled tight around him. She set a steaming bowl and a roll in front of him, and he stared at it like he couldn't believe it was real. "Go on," she said with a small smile. "It ain't fancy, but it'll warm you up." He didn't need telling twice. He tore into the roll, crumbs falling everywhere, and slurped the soup so fast Maggie worried he'd burn his tongue. She sat across from him, watching the color creep back into his face, the way his shoulders relaxed just a little. And then it hit her, hard. This kid, this little boy with no one, he was her. Not now, not with her shitty apartment and her endless shifts, but back when she was a kid herself, when Dad walked out and Mom started coughing and never stopped. She'd been alone too, in her own way. And now here was Jimmy, looking at her like she was some kind of hero, when all she'd done was give him a damn bowl of soup. Maggie's eyes stung, and before she could stop herself, she reached across the table and pulled him into a hug. He stiffened at first, then melted into her, his bony arms clinging back. "You're not alone anymore, okay?" she whispered, her voice cracking. "I got you." It was a promise she didn't know if she could keep. Not with the bills stacking up, not with Mom's oxygen tank running low, not with Tommy's tuition looming. But she said it anyway, because she had to. Outside, across the street, Vincent Caldwell, Vince to the few who knew him well, sat in his black Cadillac, the engine idling low. Rain streaked the windshield, blurring the diner's neon glow, but he could still see her through the glass. Maggie Sullivan, 25, waitress, drowning in debt but still scraping by. He'd run her name after that first night he'd driven past, curiosity gnawing at him. Tonight he'd been heading home from a meeting with lawyers, another round of fallout from the company he'd tanked 3 years back, a mess that still haunted him when he'd seen her stop in that alley. Most people in this city would have kept walking. Hell, he would have, but not her. Vince watched as she hugged the kid, her face half lit by the diner's flickering light. He didn't know why it got to him. Maybe because kindness like that was a rarity in his world of cutthroat deals and fake smiles. Or maybe because he'd spent so long burying the guilt of what he'd done, and here was this woman, broke as hell, giving what little she had. His fingers tapped the steering wheel, restless. He didn't get it, but he wanted to. Back inside, Jimmy finished eating, his eyelids drooping as the warmth settled in. Maggie cleared the bowl, then grabbed an old blanket from the storage closet and tucked it around him on the booth's bench. "Sleep here tonight," she said. "We'll figure tomorrow out tomorrow." He nodded, already drifting off, and she sank into the seat across from him, staring out at the rain. Her chest ached, part relief, part dread. She couldn't save everyone. She could barely save herself, but tonight at least, she'd saved him. Vince lingered a minute longer, then reached into his wallet and pulled out 2 crisp hundreds. He stepped out, the rain soaking his coat, and slipped into the diner just long enough to tuck the bills under a napkin on the counter. Maggie didn't notice. She was too busy watching Jimmy sleep, her own eyes heavy. Vince left without a word, the bell jingling faintly as he disappeared into the night. Maggie sat there, the rain a steady drum against the glass, wondering how long she could keep this up. She didn't see the money, didn't see the man who'd left it. All she saw was a kid who needed her, and a city that didn't give a damn. Hey, if you've ever met someone whose kindness blew you away, drop your story in the comments below. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We've got more of Maggie's journey coming your way. Maggie woke up to the sound of a truck rumbling past on Gratiot Avenue, the noise rattling the diner's thin windows. Her neck ached from dozing off in the booth, and the blanket she'd draped over Jimmy was still tucked around him across the table. He was out cold, his chest rising and falling in slow, steady breaths. For a second, she just watched him, the way his face softened in sleep, like the world hadn't beaten him down yet. Then reality crashed in. Mom's meds, Tommy's tuition, the electric bill she'd dodged for 2 months. She rubbed her eyes, exhaustion settling deeper into her bones, and stood up to start the coffee pot. Another day at Rusty Spoon waited, whether she was ready or not. The bell jingled as Eddie Russo shuffled in, his gray hair sticking out under a tiger's cap. He owned the place, though you'd never guess it from the way he moved. Slow, hunched, like the weight of 30 years behind that counter had finally caught up. Maggie forced a smile as she tied on her apron. "Morning, Eddie. Coffee's on." He grunted, tossing his keys onto the counter, but didn't look at her. That wasn't like him. Normally, he'd grumble about the weather or the Lions' latest loss. Today, he just stared at the floor, rubbing his temples. Maggie's gut twisted. "What's up?" she asked, keeping her tone light. Eddie sighed, heavy and tired. "It's the landlord, Mags. He's jacking the rent again, double this time. Says we got till the end of the month to pay up or get out." Her stomach dropped. "Double? Eddie, we're barely scraping by as it is. Where the hell are we supposed to get that kind of cash?" I know, he muttered, shaking his head. I tried talking him down, called every bank in town for a loan. Nothing. This place. He trailed off, looking around at the peeling paint, the cracked vinyl booths, the grease-stained walls. Might be the end of the line. Maggie's hands curled into fists. Rusty Spoon wasn't just a job. It was home. The regulars who tipped in loose change, the late-night truckers who called her Han, the quiet moments when she could pretend life wasn't falling apart. Losing it would gut her. We'll figure something out, she said, more to herself than him. We have to. The door swung open again, and Tina Morales breezed in, her dark ponytail swinging as she shrugged off her jacket. She was 32, a single mom with a sharp tongue and sharper eyes, and she'd been slinging plates at the diner almost as long as Maggie. What's with the long faces? She asked, clocking the tension right away. Rent's doubling, Maggie said flatly. We might be done for. Tina snorted, tying her apron. Figures. This city's always kicking us when we're down. You got a plan, St. Maggie, or we just praying for a miracle? Don't start, Maggie shot back, but there was no heat in it. Tina always ribbed her about being too soft, giving extra coffee to the old guys, sneaking leftovers to the strays out back. She didn't get it, and Maggie didn't expect her to. The morning rush, if you could call it that, kept them busy enough to dodge the gloom. Maggie poured coffee, flipped pancakes, and kept an eye on Jimmy, who'd woken up and was doodling on a napkin in the corner booth. She'd told him to stick around till she could figure out what to do with him. No way was she letting him go back to that alley. Then around 10, the bell jingled again, and in walked the guy from last night. Tall, sharp jaw, expensive coat that screamed not from around here. Vincent Caldwell. Vince. She'd caught his name when he'd paid with a card a few nights back. He slid into a booth by the window, his blue eyes scanning the room before landing on her. Maggie felt a prickle of unease as she walked over, order pad in hand. Welcome back, she said, keeping it neutral. What'll it be? Just the special, he said, voice smooth, measured. Like he was sizing her up. She jotted it down and turned to go, but he stopped her. Hey, found this last night. He slid 2 crumpled hundreds across the table, the ones he'd left under the napkin. Thought you might have missed it. Maggie's cheeks burned. She'd seen the cash that morning, stuffed it in her pocket, and planned to give it back. I don't need your charity, she said, pushing the bills toward him. Keep it. It's not charity, he replied, unfazed. It's a tip. Good service deserves it. She scoffed. Nobody tips $200 for a bowl of soup. Before he could argue, she walked off, dumping the money in the trash behind the counter. Tina caught the whole thing and smirked. What's his deal? Thinks he's going to save you with his fancy wallet? Beats me, Maggie muttered, but her mind was racing. Who was this guy, and why wouldn't he leave her alone? By noon, the diner was quiet again, and Maggie's head was spinning. Eddie's news gnawed at her. Losing the spoon meant losing everything. She stepped outside for a breather, the air crisp and damp from last night's rain. That's when she saw it. A flyer taped to the lamppost, advertising small business loans. A shot in the dark, but maybe a shot worth taking. She ripped it down, stuffed it in her pocket, and headed back inside, a flicker of hope sparking in her chest. That afternoon, she left Jimmy with Tina, keep him out of trouble, all right, and hit the bank. The guy behind the desk, some suit with a fake smile, didn't even blink when she laid out her case. No collateral, bad credit, 2 maxed out cards? He shook his head. Sorry, miss, can't help you. She walked out empty-handed, the rejection stinging worse than the cold. Back at the diner, she found Jimmy in the storage closet, curled up behind a stack of flour sacks. Hey, she said, kneeling down. What are you doing in here? His voice was small. Hiding. The people I was with, they hit me. A lot. I ran away, but I'm scared they'll find me. Maggie's heart sank. She'd figured he was a runaway, but hearing it out loud made it real. Nobody's gonna hurt you anymore, she said, pulling him into a hug. You're safe with me. It was a reckless promise. She could barely keep her own head above water, but she meant every word. That night, Vince came back. Same booth, same cool stare. This time, he didn't order, just waited till she came over, then slid an envelope across the table. Open it, he said. She did, and her breath caught. 50 grand. $50,000. Her hands shook as she stared at the check, her name scrawled in neat ink. What the hell is this? A chance. he said simply. "I saw you with that kid last night. You stopped when nobody else would. Most people don't." "I don't need your pity cash, mister," she snapped, shoving it back at him. "I'm not some sob story for you to fix." He leaned back, studying her. "It's not pity. You're drowning, Maggie Sullivan. I looked you up. Debts, a sick mom, a brother in college. You're killing yourself to keep it together, and you still gave that kid what little you had. That's not a sob story. That's strength." She froze, his words cutting deeper than she'd expected. How did he know all that? "Why do you care?" she demanded. He didn't answer right away, just tapped the check. "Take it. Save this place. Do what you do best." Then he stood and walked out, leaving her staring at the envelope, her pulse hammering. Later, after closing, Maggie sat alone in the booth, the check in her lap. Jimmy was asleep again, a napkin with a pencil sketch beside him, her and him standing in the rain, smiling. She traced the lines with her finger, tears slipping down her cheeks. 50 grand could save the spoon, could save her, but at what cost? She didn't know if she could take it, if she could stomach being someone's project. The rain picked up again outside, drumming against the glass, and she buried her face in her hands, lost. So, what would you do? Hold on to pride or grab a lifeline? Tell us in the comments, and hit subscribe to see what Maggie decides next. The next morning, Maggie stood in the bank, her hands sweaty as she slid Vince's check across the counter. The teller's eyebrows shot up, but she didn't ask questions, just processed it. By noon, the money was hers, all 50 grand sitting in her beat-up savings account. It felt unreal, like Monopoly cash, but it was enough to pay off the landlord and keep Rusty Spoon alive. She didn't tell Eddie right away. Wanted to surprise him once she had a plan, and oh, she had a plan. Not just to save the diner, but to make it something more. Something hers. Back at the Spoon, she sat Eddie down, her voice steady despite the nerves chewing at her. "I got the money," she said. "We're not losing this place." His jaw dropped. "Maggie, how—" "Doesn't matter," she cut in, dodging the truth. "But I want to do more than just keep the doors open. I want to turn it into something new, a place where anybody can get a meal, no questions asked. Call it Maggie's Haven." Eddie blinked, then let out a raspy laugh. "You're crazy, kid. But if you got the cash, I'm in." Over the next 2 weeks, Maggie threw herself into it. She paid the rent, patched up the booths with duct tape and elbow grease, and swapped the flickering neon sign for a hand-painted one. Maggie's Haven. She hired Dwayne Jackson, a hulking guy with a rap sheet and a scowl, to cook. He'd walked in looking for a job, his prison ink peeking out from under his sleeves. "Heard you're hiring," he'd said, voice gruff. "I don't do handouts, though. Been burned before." "It's not a handout," Maggie replied. "It's a paycheck. You cook, we eat. Deal?" He nodded, and that was that. She kept Jimmy close, too, letting him crash on a cot in the back. He didn't talk much, but he'd started sketching on every scrap of paper he could find. Little drawings of the diner, the street, her flipping pancakes. It made her smile, even on the days when she was running on fumes. The first week Maggie's Haven opened, word spread fast. Regulars came back, curious about the new vibe, and folks down on their luck trickled in. Guys with cardboard signs, moms with kids in tow. Maggie served them all, no charge, just like she'd promised. Tina wasn't sold, though. "You're gonna bleed us dry," she warned one night, wiping down the counter. "This ain't a soup kitchen, Mags." "It's not about the money," Maggie shot back. "It's about giving people a damn break." Tina rolled her eyes. "Yeah, well, breaks don't pay the bills." Trouble brewed quick. Claire Bennett, a regular who'd been coming since the Spoon days, strutted in one afternoon, her designer purse swinging. She was all blonde highlights and fake smiles, the kind of woman who tipped a nickel and called it generous. When she saw a scruffy guy in a corner booth eating for free, her lip curled. "What's this, Maggie? Feeding bums now?" "It's called helping," Maggie said, keeping her cool. "You don't like it. Door's right there." Claire smirked. "Oh, I'll be back. This place is a joke." Sure enough, by the next day, whispers were flying, Claire telling anyone who'd listen that Maggie's Haven was dirty, unsafe, a handouts for rats scam. Customers dropped off, and the till ran thin. Maggie gritted her teeth and kept going, but the cracks were showing. Then came the real gut punch. Late one night after closing, Maggie was counting the drawer when she heard glass shatter. She bolted to the front, heart pounding, and saw the window by the door smashed in, jagged shards glinting on the floor. The cash box, half of Vince's money, stashed for repairs, was gone. She sank to her knees, glass crunching under her, and screamed, "I can't keep doing this!" Her voice echoed in the empty diner, raw and broken. Jimmy peeked out from the back, eyes wide, but she waved him off. "Go back to sleep, kiddo. I'm fine." She wasn't fine. She was done. The second high hit her like a freight train. Everything she'd built, everything she'd fought for, gone in one stupid break-in. She sat there, head in her hands, the cold seeping through the busted window, and wondered if Tina was right. Maybe she couldn't save anybody. Maybe she was just a fool. Dwayne found her like that an hour later, his boots crunching over the debris as he hauled in a sack of potatoes for the morning shift. He set it down, frowning. What the hell happened? "Somebody took the cash," she mumbled, not looking up. "Half of it. We're screwed." He didn't say anything for a minute, just stood there, arms crossed. Then he sighed, heavy and tired. "You know who I used to work for?" he asked, his voice low. "Vincent Caldwell. Big shot who ran a shipping outfit till he tanked it. Fired me and 100 others, said it was business. I did time because I couldn't pay my rent after that. And now he's playing savior with you?" Maggie's head snapped up. "Wait, you know Vince?" "Know him?" Dwayne snorted. "I hate his guts. But I see him sniffing around here, tossing money like it fixes what he broke." She stared at him, pieces clicking into place. Vince wasn't just some rich guy with a bleeding heart. He had a past, a mess he'd made, and she was tangled up in it now. Before she could process it, Dwayne turned to the kitchen. "Come on," he said, "get up." "What are you doing?" she asked, confused. He didn't answer, just started pulling dough from the fridge, kneading it with those big, scarred hands. "You're not alone in this, girl," he said finally. "I ain't letting this place go down without a fight. We're making bread. Free breakfast tomorrow. Screw the thieves." Maggie watched, stunned as he worked. Something cracked open in her chest. Not hope, not yet, but a flicker of fight. She dragged herself up, grabbed a broom, and started sweeping. They didn't talk much, just moved together in the dim light, the smell of yeast cutting through the damp air. The next morning, they gave out free rolls to anyone who showed. Dozens of folks, more than she'd expected. Jimmy pitched in, passing out napkins with his quiet little grin. Then came the twist that turned it all around. One of the regulars, a grizzled guy named Pete, snapped a pic of Jimmy's sketches taped to the wall. Little pencil scenes of the diner, of Maggie pouring coffee, of the crowd outside. He posted it online with a caption, "Maggie's Haven, where Detroit fights back with kindness." By noon, it was blowing up. Retweets, shares, a local news blog picking it up. People started trickling in, not just for free food, but to see what the buzz was about. The till rang again, and Maggie felt a rush she hadn't in weeks. But it wasn't over. That afternoon, Claire stormed back in, her heels clicking like gunfire. "Enjoy your little charity stunt while it lasts," she sneered, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I'm calling the city. This dump's a blight. Health code violations, loitering, you name it. You'll be shut down by next week." Maggie's blood ran cold. The crowd went quiet, all eyes on her. She clenched her fist, the broom still in her hand, and stared Claire down. "You want to play dirty?" she said, voice shaking but firm. "Go ahead, I'm not backing off." Claire smirked and flounced out, leaving a cloud of perfume and menace. Maggie turned back to the counter, her hands trembling. Dwayne caught her eye, nodding once, solid as a rock. Jimmy slipped over, sliding a new sketch into her hand, her standing tall, the diner glowing behind her. She swallowed hard, the weight of it all crashing down. The break-in, Claire's threats, Vince's ghosts. It was too much. She could keep fighting, pour everything into this dream, or she could walk away before it crushed her. For the first time, she didn't know which way to turn. Is kindness worth the fight when the world keeps hitting back? Drop your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to see how Maggie takes on this mess. The air in Maggie's Haven buzzed with tension the next morning. Word of Claire's threat had spread, and the regulars whispered over their coffee, casting nervous glances at Maggie as she wiped down tables. She could feel their eyes, the weight of their doubt, but she kept moving, scrubbing harder than she needed to, like she could wipe away the mess piling up around her. The busted window was boarded up now, thanks to Dwayne, but the hole in her chest wasn't so easy to patch. 50 grand down the drain, half stolen, and now this rich chick wanted to bury them. She gripped the rag tight, her knuckles white, and tried to focus on the clatter of dishes, the smell of frying bacon, anything but the panic clawing at her. Jimmy stuck close, sketching in his corner booth like nothing was wrong. Dwayne hauled in the kitchen, flipping pancakes with a steady rhythm, his silence a quiet anchor. Tina darted between tables, her usual sass dialed down. She'd seen the viral post, knew they were on thin ice. "You okay, Mags?" she asked once, low enough that no one else heard. Maggie forced a nod. "Yeah, just gotta keep going." But she wasn't sure she believed it. By noon, the place was packed. More from the online buzz than Claire's poison, thank God. Pete, the guy who'd posted Jimmy's drawings, sat at the counter nursing a black coffee. "You're a damn legend now," he said with a grin. "Whole city's talking about this joint." "Hope they're saying good things," Maggie muttered, pouring him a refill. She wanted to believe it, but Claire's words echoed louder. "Shut down by next week." Then the bell jingled, sharp and loud, and Claire Bennett swept in like she owned the place. Her heels clicked against the linoleum, her purse swinging like a weapon. The room went quiet, forks pausing midair. She stopped dead center, hands on her hips, and raised her voice so everyone could hear. "Thought I'd give you one last look at this dump before the city tears it down. Feeding bums with my tax money? Disgusting. You're a fool, Maggie Sullivan, and I'm done watching you drag this neighborhood into the gutter." Maggie's blood boiled. She dropped the coffee pot on the counter with a thud and stepped forward, the rag still in her fist. "You got a problem with me helping people, Claire? Take it up with somebody who cares. This ain't about money, it's about people. You wouldn't get it." Claire laughed, sharp and cold. "Oh, I get it. You're playing Mother Teresa with other people's dime. Enjoy your little fantasy while it lasts." She turned to the crowd, smirking. "Anyone else think this is a health hazard? Speak up." No one did. Pete coughed into his mug and a trucker in the back muttered, "Lady, sit down or get out." Claire's face tightened, but she didn't budge. Maggie took another step, her voice shaking with fury. "You want to tear this place down? Try it. I've been fighting my whole damn life. I'm not stopping for you." That's when the bell jingled again, softer this time. Vince Caldwell walked in. No fancy coat today, just a plain jacket and a look that said he'd been up all night. The air shifted, like everyone sensed something big was coming. He moved past Claire, straight to Maggie, and stopped a foot away. "Got a minute?" he asked, low and steady. She glared at him, still wired from Claire. "What now, Vince? More cash to fix my mess?" He didn't flinch. "No, something better." Then he turned to the room, raising his voice just enough. "I've been watching this place a while. Saw what you did for that kid, Maggie, Jimmy. Saw you give when you had nothing left. Most people don't do that. I didn't." Dwayne stepped out from the kitchen, wiping his hands on his apron, his eyes narrowing. "You got some nerve showing your face, Caldwell." Vince met his glare head on. "Yeah, I do. And I owe you an apology, Dwayne. 3 years ago, I ran a company into the ground, cut corners, laid off good people like you. Thought it was just business. It wasn't. I've been running from that ever since." He paused, then looked at Maggie. "Until I saw you fight for this place. You showed me what real strength looks like." Maggie's breath hitched. The room was dead silent now, even Claire frozen mid-smirk. Vince reached into his pocket and pulled out a stack of papers, setting them on the counter. "This is the deed to this building. I bought it off the landlord this morning. It's yours, Maggie. No rent, no threats. You built something worth keeping." Her hands shook as she picked up the papers, scanning the words. Maggie's Haven, property of Margaret Sullivan. It was real. No more fighting to stay afloat, no more late-night panic. She looked up at Vince, tears blurring her vision. Why would you do this?" "Because you deserve it," he said, simple as that. "I didn't fix you, Maggie. You fixed yourself. I just gave you the shot." The dam broke. She laughed, choked and messy, wiping her eyes with her sleeve. The third high hit her like a wave, relief, disbelief, a wild kind of joy she hadn't felt in years. Dwayne clapped Vince on the shoulder, a hard thud that said more than words. "Guess you're not all bad, man," he grunted, and Vince cracked a rare smile. Claire sputtered, her face red. This is ridiculous!" She stormed out, heels clacking, and no one stopped her. The room erupted. Cheers, clinking mugs, Pete yelling, "That's our Maggie!" Jimmy ran over, throwing his arms around her waist, and she hugged him back, laughing through the tears. Weeks later, Maggie's haven was unrecognizable. Not the building, but the spirit. The booths were still patched, the counter still chipped, but the place hummed with life. Sunlight streamed through new windows, donated by a hardware guy who'd seen the viral post, bouncing off Jimmy's sketches, now framed on the walls. Dwayne dished out stacks of pancakes, barking orders with a grin. Tina poured coffee, Softer Me laughing as she handed cups to a line of folks, some regulars, some new faces, all drawn by the promise of a free meal if they needed it. A single mom with 2 kids sat in a corner, her little girl coloring on a napkin while the boy shoveled eggs into his mouth. An old vet with a gray beard nursed a mug, swapping stories with Pete. It wasn't just a diner anymore, it was a lifeline, a warm spot in Detroit's cold heart. Maggie moved through it all, apron smudged with flour, her hair a frizzy mess from the steam. She caught Jimmy, officially hers now, paper signed last week, wiping tables, his grin wide. Dwayne hollered from the kitchen, "Mags, we're out of bacon!" And she yelled back, "On it, boss!" Tina smirked, muttering, "He wishes," and the room chuckled. Vince stopped by that afternoon, leaning against the counter as Maggie handed him a coffee. "Looks good," he said, nodding at the chaos. "Feels good," she replied, meeting his eyes. For a second, they just stood there, no words needed. Then he tipped his mug to her and left, the bell jingling behind him. Later, as the sun dipped low, Maggie stepped outside, the air crisp and golden. She looked at the sign, Maggie's Haven, and down the street, where the city stretched out rough and beautiful. She'd made it, not because of luck or handouts, but because she'd fought. Because kindness wasn't free. It was a battle, and she'd won. "Worth every damn fight," she murmured, then headed back in, ready for whatever came next. Ever seen kindness change a place or a person? Share your story in the comments below and hit subscribe for more tales of grit and heart like Maggie's.